Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to everybody joining from across the world. And thank you for taking out time to join the second day of our GRC Summit. We had a fantastic first day with the opening from our CEO, and then deep discussions on ESG, on topics like cybersecurity and resilience, and also on profit with purpose, on how companies are evolving to that thought process. Today, as we open up, we're going to talk a little more about the different risk themes and how customers and companies and organizations are adopting to the new world of risk, the new normal, if you will, and capturing the known and unknowns across the spectrum and themes of risk. I'm going to start with a very interesting fact. The World Economic Forum's 2006 Global Risk Report sounded the alarm on pandemics and other health related risks. That year, the report warned of quote unquote a lethal flu, its spread facilitated by global travel patterns and uncontained sufficient warning mechanisms, and that would present an acute threat. Impacts would include severe impairment of travel, tourism, and other services, as well as manufacturing, supply chains, global trade, investor risk appetites, and consumption demand across industries. Fast forward 2020, 14 years later, that has come true. It has become a reality. As we move forward, as governments, businesses, and societies really survey the damage inflicted in the last 18 to 24 months, strengthening strategic foresight is now more important than ever before. With the world more attuned to risk, there is an opportunity to leverage that attention and find more effective ways to identify and communicate risk to decision makers. It also seems to be a Formula One digital race out there. The slow are being overtaken by the faster, and the faster are being disrupted by the fastest out there in the market. Any industry you look at, whether it's healthcare, it's financial services, it's oil and gas, it's education, it's transportation, everybody's getting disrupted. And with that risk comes opportunity. Now, if we combine all this, there is an opportunity in the market right now to look at risk and resilience in the context of growth and how they come together. The World Economic Forum, has presented this year's report more recently, and we are seeing a distinctive pattern of short, medium, and long-term risks. If you look at the short term, the clear and present, clearly prolonged stagnation is a risk. There is cybersecurity and digital inequality that we're hearing from the big techs very often these days. That is a short-term risk. If you go to the medium term, things like asset bubble, commodity prices, debt crisis, infrastructure breakdowns, and tech governance could pose a big threat. And if you go long term, the collapse of certain industries, because of, again, all the stuff I talked about in the last minute or two, and adverse tech advance, which means if you don't handle technology in a responsible way, it could create biases, it could create negative impact on society. Now, while all of this looks very scary in some ways, it's that balance of growth and opportunity and purpose and profit that we all have to worry about, in our scheme of things. I've also had the opportunity to meet with a number of our customers as things have opened up over the last few weeks and maybe a couple of months. And there are some clear patterns that are emerging and themes that are emerging that risk officers and compliance officers worry about right now. And after I've tried to capture that in a 2-minute video, as we have taken the course verbatim from some of our customers and what they really worry about, and then we'll try to put that together into some of the primary themes that we all need to work through the next year or 18 months. Let's play the video. So, as you saw from our quotes from customers, there are distinctively a few patterns emerging, as I mentioned. Let me play those out. The first one really is all about increasing volume and velocity of risk. Clearly, the interdependencies of these risks have enhanced significantly, and there's always a very significant downstream impact of one risk on the other. We are also seeing the emergence of new risks like ESG and accentuated third party risk because of the supply chain that has emerged and are continuing to emerge. And we're also seeing a big proliferation in terms of regulatory uncertainties, sometimes even conflicting regulatory guidances from different regulations across different countries, particularly for global organizations. The second big theme that's emerging is clearly what I call the awareness of peripheral risk. So, with proliferation of data and information that could be coming in externally or internally to organizations' infrastructures, it becomes extremely important to harness this data. A lot of people talk about data being the new oil, and that's true. Data aggregation and refining the data to ensure that we can make sense of it, is exceptionally important in the new world because of the volume, velocity, and the information that might be sitting at multiple places. And add to that the rapid adoption of the cloud, virtual environments, work from home, exceptionally important that data can be brought in, processed, and be applied to risk information that can help organizations deal with that much better. The third the third risk that we see, or the third pattern that we see, is really about frontline knowing the lurking risks. We all know that human assisted intelligence, on top of all the data elements we talked about earlier, is becoming extremely critical. So, fast fleeted organizations are looking at accessing the front line and driving information from the front line in a crowdsourced environment to be able to look at patterns on where risk could be sitting, and also empowering the front line to make decisions faster in this pacey world of risk management. The, the fourth pattern that we saw and heard from a lot of our customers and in the video is that there's a chant for agility clearly. In the video as well, that companies and organizations are looking to ensure that they can get bite-sized success, not a full-fledged 2, 3, 4 year program, to be able to realize the value of risk programs effectively, again, because of the velocity and pace. So this balancing act between time to value and change management has come to the fore, and organizations are dealing with that to ensure that they get bite-sized value. Last but not the least, very critical that harmonization happens effectively. The pandemic was a good example that organizations that had their information well organized, well harmonized, the relationships between their business entities to suppliers, to assets, to their business objectives, to their policies, all of that was extremely important to run a good program in risk and GRC. And it's exceptionally important that companies look at that. And add to that the increasing focus on risk quantification as a measure of communication and a natural language that somebody pointed out earlier in the video, to be able to communicate with CFOs, with CEOs, with board members, and even with the insurance companies who are trying to figure out how to model their premiums to risk is very important. Now, I'll just take an example. There's a very large global 10 organization that has been able to harmonize this, take it to a level where they're able to aggregate data from 100+ sources and then layer on the risk quantification element to be able to provide their board a single number on a week by week basis on what their risk exposure is. Whether it's $1 billion this week, $1.5 billion next week, they're able to quantify their risk. And that's the true essence and the true coming together of integrated GRC in a true environment where harmonization leads to better quantification and better communication. So in summary, if you look at it, what we are talking really about is volume and velocity, peripheral risk, frontline involvement, engagement, agility, and harmonization and quantification. They are the primary 5 themes to summarize the entire engagement. Now, as we look at a little more strategically, if you need to create resilience, the whole concept of strengthening resilience boils down to really four things primarily. Number one, formulating the right analytical frameworks to manage risk. The second thing is to invest in high profile risk champions who can carry the flag and the dialogue forward and start to communicate broadly, ensuring that risk communication is sharp both downstream and upstream. And finally, we are seeing a significant improvement in the market on public private partnerships on risk preparedness. The data exchanges are coming up where central banks are coordinating with their constituent banks, for example, cyber exchanges that are being formulated not just between the private organizations, but also with governments participating in them. Now, with this, if we go forward, what is metric stream and how is metric stream strengthening this? So, from our perspective, different organizations are at different phases of their journey. And as you probably saw in some of the sessions yesterday as well, there are three stages in which organizations are looking at their integrated risk programs. Number one, managing risk, where they are integrating different risk themes, whether it's operational risk, third parties, cyber and IT, their audit programs, their financial control programs under one umbrella, one platform, aggregating information, within these use cases, if you will. The second phase where companies are maturing into is making sure that they can aggregate information from different kinds of sources. We talked about the peripheral risk in the past, but also layering that with human assisted intelligence through crowdsourcing, gathering observations from the front line. And the final bastion really is about thriving on risk, which is the journey or the path organizations can actually look at leveraging risk as a strategic advantage. How do you ensure that you can use your risk profiles to leverage significant amount of growth opportunities while understanding risk better and doing that with an eye on purpose through things like ESG, your ethical discussions that happen within organizations and outside as well. So with this, let me give you a couple of minutes of what MetricStream is doing in these journeys. We did a recent survey where our customers are powering what's next, and this is a self-reflected status of where they are on the journey. 44% of the customers said that they are in the manage risk phase, 44% in the embrace risk, and 12% on the thrive on risk. What is MetricStream doing to help power this? There's a few things. We bring deep domain products to you, to our customers, to our partners, to organizations, to governments to be able to facilitate the thrive on risk, the manage risk, and the embrace risk. It's a comprehensive set of portfolio of products: risk management, IT and cyber, financial controls and audit, regulatory compliance, third party, and our recently launched ESG product portfolio. All this can come to you on a single platform that's powered with the latest in AI, ML, RPAs, analytics, etc. And then we bring to bear proven expertise of having worked with hundreds of the global organizations and mid-tier organizations across the board. And what you can do with all this is ensure that your next level of user experience for adoption, an integrated approach, interconnections, and facilitating that within the organization, and also start is modular. So you can start with the areas of impact that are most important to you today and then translate that journey forward. As we go to the next couple of things, our key innovation areas focus on 5 key themes. Agility, to be able to provide a low code, zero code environment so that you're agile. Adoption from a UX, mobility, wherever you want to access kind of model. AI, very specific use cases to be able to increase the efficiency and the outlook on data. Analytics, which could be operational reporting, but also the ability not just to prevent, but also to predict. And finally, aggregation of data information, externally and externally through the whole framework of APIs that become extremely important to be able to leverage data as the new oil, as I called it earlier. And we are continuous in our innovation. We have moved from annual releases to 4-month cycles. Every 4 months we're releasing a new set of features and products on the platform level that allows you to consume this very frequently and keep ahead on the innovation curve. And then finally, as an organization, We want to bring this all together through our people. At Metric Stream, we are investing in people, in markets, in our products, on innovation, and our customer success. And our team is ready. The world is opening up, and we want to participate with you, partner with you to bring all this together as you are powering what's next in your own risk journeys. Thank you very much, and stay tuned for the rest of the day.